Welcome to the Produce Industry Podcast, your weekly download on current events, trends, market reports, and community discussions. Join us each week from Tampa, Florida, as we cover all aspects of the produce supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, my boy, the voice of the produce industry, Patrick Kelly.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kelly, also known as Lil Citrus, coming to you live from Tampa, Florida. That's right here in the Life Media Studios, representing the Produce Industry Network, the official voice of the produce industry, everyone. Welcome. I'm super excited. We're jam-packed. It's June, and I can tell you this, it's pretty warm here in Florida, and I just got back from a citrus conference, which was absolutely amazing. My dad's been going to this citrus conference for probably over 3 decades or so as well. He was happy that he got to see all the kids all in one place, as well as us talking about citrus. So always a fun thing to do. And everyone, just about 10 days or so, I know already, and I normally never talk about myself, but 10 days or so, I turned 40. So super excited to be closer to 60 at this point than I am to 20 anymore. Okay, so congratulations to me. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep doing jujitsu, keep eating fresh produce, and keeping up the healthy and active lifestyle. But I think my kids do that enough. But back to it. Before we get started, again, a couple announcements before we get started into this episode, and kind of tell you what this episode's about as well. But July. Okay, everyone. No more trade shows for June. I'm trying to take the next, I would say 3 to 4 weeks off. But when you get into July, you got OPS and you got the Monterey Food Service Conference. OPS being at the start of the month, and then leading to the Food Service Conference towards the end of the month. 2 really good conferences. A lot of food service. Like I said, organics. So if you're into organics, that's another one. We have an organic page on our Ag Life Media website, which is pretty cool. We're always looking for new stories, new opportunities, new advertisers for the organic spot as well. And it's got good relevant information as well. So check it out. And again, then moving into August, we've got the NEPC show, New England Produce Council. They're trying to grow that show, everyone. And listen, if I know that's a complicated area, but this is a show you probably should be at, because all of the buyers, all of the supply chain people are there that are in that area. Meaning what? It's a small enough show to be able to meet people that you want to chat with. You know what I mean? Sometimes these larger shows, it's just so hard to get people, or you're trying to drag on someone's shoulder. Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you. That person probably thought to themselves, no, you have not been trying to get a hold of me. I know when people are trying to get a hold of me, they call me on my cell phone. I laugh about that, but it's just funny. What else? What else is going on? There's a lot going on. In just 30 days or so, too, will the tariffs continue for South Africa citrus at 10%, or are they going to go back up to 30%? What is going to happen? Have you seen South Africa citrus on the shelves yet? Maybe if you're in the Northeast. I know they've loaded a lot, but normally the blunt of all this, it comes in July. So got to stay tuned. Obviously, there's always news around tariffs and what's happening and how it's affecting us. So please stay tuned for that and find out more, because we'll have some headlines as soon as we get some updates. And I can't wait to go to the port this year, go see the Holt team, as well as all the importers, because when we're on the ground, we're able to get real-time information. Heck, I remember last year I was there when the port strike was happening. We did a couple interviews. And next thing you know, the port strike was done. I had nothing to do with releasing any of that port strike, but I like to say that we were on the ground when it all happened, right? So it's cool being with those stakeholders. And I think that's enough announcements of what's coming, next. Let's talk about today. Today is a good day. Today is a fun day, because one of my most favorite people in the world is in the studio with me. And if you follow me personally, I post every time we're together, and which has not been that often in the last 5 to 7 years. So this is the most we've seen each other probably in the last 7 years. The completely the most. So Dr. Hans Finzel's in house today, and we've been trying to be regular on hanging out and smoking cigars while he's at his summer home in South Florida. I'm not going to tell you which city. It's beautiful though. And yeah, we were like, let's keep getting together. I'm like, you want to be on the podcast? He's like, absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership today. We're going to talk about his best-selling book, because he laughs all the time. He's like, I think it's really easy to write a book. It's really hard to sell a book. Well, this book has sold over 1 million copies. Okay. And it's a great book. It's one of the books I read when he told me to go sit back down in my seat when we met on a flight to China. So it's an amazing book. He's also the co-author to our book, Millennial Boom, which talks about the generational gap. And I really wrote that book, everyone, because why? Because my dad's a boomer and I'm a millennial. And I kept going to Hans and I was like, I don't get these boomers. He's like, not all boomers are equal, like you're saying, buddy. Like I'm completely different than that. So we wrote a book on the generational gap. And I think it all applies to this day. I think that with the leadership change, within produce, and we're going to talk about that when we come back from break. And we're really going to get some insights from Hans. He's going to talk about his 3 favorite chapters in the book. And he's also going to give you some real key takeaways. One, within the generational gap, right? Because we know within the fresh produce and supply chain industry, baby boomers are still controlling companies. They're still working 75, 80 years old. And I'm proud to say that they are. That means they love what they do. But is it affecting the bottom line? Well, Hans will tell you. It can come from a baby boomer himself. This guy's around companies, big companies, right? He's been an entrepreneur himself. So think about that. It's not just coming from me. I know everybody, you guys hear from me and you're like, I know, Pat, I know. We hear you, buddy. But that's why I always try to bring those experts on. But before that, let's go ahead and let's take a quick break. We're going to hear from one of our sponsors and we'll be right back.
120 years ago, in Groningen, the Netherlands, a small produce business began, trading fresh local fruits. By the 1930s, the Vandenberg family moved to Rotterdam, Europe's burgeoning fruit hub. But when the 1940s brought turmoil, they fled to America, rebuilding their legacy in fresh produce. In 1958, Jack Vandenberg became a trailblazer, importing fresh Chilean fruit to the US, opening doors to global flavors. Today, that spirit of growth and innovation continues, with sustainable packaging, carbon footprint tracking, and the finest fruit varieties. We're redefining freshness for the future. Family, fresh, innovation, celebrating a legacy 120 years in the making. This is Jack Vandenberg.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. It's always great to hear from Dynamite sponsors creating dynamite content for the produce and supply chain industry. All right, listen, everyone, we're talking about leadership. We're going to talk about mistakes leaders can make. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, why are we going to talk about that? Why do we want to talk about mistakes that leaders make? We just want to talk about the success. Listen, with failure comes success. With success comes failure. Everybody that wins all the time, trust me, there's a lot of them, right? But they understand failure, right? Even the best boxers in the world that have gone undefeated in the ring, you don't think they've lost in other matches, right? They had to fail so hard to get to where they're going today, right? Or where they are, where they were, or where they might have been, right? Some have passed. And I think that that leadership, even in produce, right? I always say this, like we bring it back because there's so many people that talk about leadership, how to define leadership, how to respect leadership, how you go about your own form of leadership, right? Some people try to mold you into a certain leadership, right? They try to tell you this is how you should be, this is how you should act, right? And I don't think it's always a one size fits all. So when Hans comes on, he's going to talk about a lot of that, and not only just talk about it. I mean, I get to have Hans on the podcast. We're going to have some fun stuff to talk about as well, not just the leadership, but you'll also be able to see the conversations of how him and I relate to each other and how we've worked together. And it's about growing and working together, everyone. And that's where we need to, as a produce community. I've interviewed companies in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months. I've interviewed companies that they're passing the torch, which you've seen the Noble Citrus group that's been in the podcast studio, and Quentin Rowe is 3rd generation passing the torch to 4th generation, which is Adam Rowe. You've in this citrus, right? And then you have Mike Chavez, who now that's passed from 1st generation from his dad now to Michael Chavez, which is 2nd generation, and passing that torch in probably 2 different ways, right? And it's interesting to say that both those people, right, are boomers and millennials. So that passing of the torch is happening, right? So Michael, Adam, around between 37 and 40 years old, right? So it's already starting to happen. How do we go about doing that? How do we respect each other in the process, right? And Hans and I even wrote our first book, or my first book. He co-authored it. Really helped me understand the whole process. But we tried to figure out all these pain points on. You can always say, like, here's what you need to succeed. But we talked about things like, hey, you just don't get it, right? And why don't you just get it? Because we think differently. How we use creativity compared to you. Like, one thing Hans always would say too is, like, don't neglect to get to know these other generations, because we all think so differently. And that's how the creative juices go, right? Because then one person feeds off of another, and it's not just a one-way street, right? It's a collaboration, right? And I think that's where the way he talks about leadership too. And his leadership is beyond some of the best. As I always say, some of my mentors growing up, one was my uncle, taught me a lot. One was my dad. He taught me a lot of what not to do. And then another one was Hans, kind of mentored me through about leadership and how to treat people and how to go about running businesses, right? With this best one, which is servant leadership, right? And I think that's one of the things that Hans is just overly amazing about. He's there for you, right? Because as a leader, okay, everyone, here's the thing. Leadership is about putting yourself to the side and doing what's best for the person that's in front of you that needs that guidance. And this guy's been doing that. It's like, I've been doing that since 1971. Like, that was Hans. Like, this isn't new to Hans, everyone. He didn't say, like, oh, I did this transformational journey. No, this has been Hans, right? And this is why he's been so successful in building companies and building teams. Because guess what? They trust him. They get to that point where they're like, wow, this is amazing. I trust him. So let's do this. We're not going to take another break. Let's just go ahead and get Hans in from the green room, and let's get him on, Jet. All right. Hey, there he is.
Hey, Patrick. Good to see you.
How are you, my friend?
I could not be better.
Welcome.
It's a great day in Florida.
It is.
Hanging out together.
Well, you live here now.
Yep, I do. I love it.
And I was going to say, how do you like living in Florida?
I love the beach. I love the sunshine. I love the warm air. I love the fishing.
Yeah, you like that. I know you are a fisher, huh? Because in Colorado, or when you traveled to go see the grandkids, all your pictures are always fishing.
Yeah.
Always fishing.
And I found some great fishing spots here too. So now
did you?
I'm fishing and biking and beaching, having a great time, and doing a little bit of work.
Hey, listen, you don't have to, no snow shoveling, no freezing, no freezing cold, no convertible in the garage all winter. So
yeah, my goal is to be in shorts and flip-flops every day of the year.
Year round.
Year round.
I mean, what do you say to
we
that?
spend half the year in Colorado and half the year here, but it's always shorts and flip-flops.
It should be always short. And I told that to someone. I was at a conference a little over a month ago, Hans, and they said, you Florida people, you're always in shorts and sandals. I said, because it's so hot. Yeah. I said, so we want to be comfortable. I go, that's really what it is. It's just, it is humid here, it's hot, but if you dress the right way, you're comfortable. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
You feel fine.
Yeah.
It just includes flip-flops, shorts,
and no blue jeans.
and a dry fit shirt.
Yep.
Always dry fit.
Yep.
You can't go wrong with dry fit.
Nope.
But no, I appreciate you coming. I'm glad that we've been able to just, again, no cigars today, but we thought this would be a little bit more intriguing and fun this time.
Oh, this was great.
Because we keep having great conversations while we're having cigars.
Yeah, and I had you on my podcast a number of years ago. Now it's your turn for me to be on your podcast.
Yeah, and we started. Hans and I, we go way back, everyone. I mean, this is like pre-COVID days. Because when you say COVID, they're like, "Oh my God, that long ago?" Right?
Yeah, I know, really.
This is way back, you know.
Yeah.
But Hans and I, again, you know, I've talked about him on the podcast many times and about leadership, and today we're going to talk about leadership because one, I tell you all the time about my industry and how the baby boomer generation is still there. And we've done so much research on these generations, really in produce, because that's how it started, right? But now different leadership is taking over, but still we have 75-year-olds that are still running companies and still in that leadership still too. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think owners of the companies, especially founders, they have the worst leadership challenges, often the worst leadership practices, because they founded the company. I call it the founder's trap. Because they found the company, it's like a child, and nobody can raise that child like I can, because I'm the parent. I was thinking about you and Ty, and you're teaching them all this. You're rebuilding this car together, and so you're the teacher. He's the mentee. You're the mentor. And your tendency is to say, here's how you do it. But the right way is to say, hey, Ty, that speaker needs to be changed in the door now. You take the lead and I'll follow you. You know, it's hard when you're the owner.
Yeah, it is. I had someone tell me that one time. I was with Ty.
Yeah.
And we're helping out.
Yeah.
And the gentleman goes, hey, Ty, can you go grab the hose? And so Ty's like getting the hose and everything. We use the hose. He goes to put it back, and it's one of those ones you kind of like roll it through it. I said, hey, stop. Because he was struggling. I said, let me show you. Boom. I start showing him how it all works.
Yeah.
And then I step back and I go, and then the second thing, Ty, is if there's two people here, ask someone, hey, can you stretch that hose out? And then you feed it in. The guy looks at me and goes, wow, you're a great dad. And I go, what? And he goes, my dad would have yelled at me for doing it wrong, and I don't even know how to do it. I like taking a step back to actually, he didn't know, versus what you were saying was like, he did it, right? But he was trying to. So I was like, how do I step in and not do?
Yep. And we'll get into this after the break about some of the biggest mistakes leaders make, and leading is what I call dirty delegation.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know that one.
And dictatorship in decision making.
Yeah.
If you own the company, it is very hard to let other people make decisions, right?
Oh, wow.
Especially young people, because what do they know?
Listen, and at 40 years old in just about 10 days, I'm still the young guy. Like, we have younger generation coming up, but we're not empowering them yet. We are, like, I went to a young, it's called YTIP, a Young Texas International Produce Association event. And it was everybody from the age of like 18 to like under 35. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's great to see the youth wanting to be involved in like the fresh produce industry. Right. But right. That's what you try to, come here, let me tell you what I've done, right? And that's what you hear a lot of, like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I'm just sitting here like, what do you think of this industry, right? You know what I mean? Like, because if you can get that from them, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's so much you could learn.
Yeah. Well, my famous story about the pizza party, you know, I'm a CEO. I no longer am, but I was a CEO of a big international nonprofit. And I was getting older and older, and I'm like, what do the young people really, the millennials and the ones younger than that, really think about working in my office? So I decided to have a pizza party, and you had to be under 30 to be invited.
Very relevant.
Lunch with the president.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, I want to know what you feel it's like to work here. And I had a whiteboard, 3 things. What do you like about working here? Number 2, what do you not like about working here? And number 3, if you could, what changes would you like to see? I'm just talking about the culture and the work environment. It was so eye-opening. And I had to promise them at the beginning,
nobody's getting in trouble.
Yeah, nothing you say can be used against
In
you
your performance.
right.
Don't worry.
Oh my
this
God.
is no
So,
negative remarks on the performance review.
I'll just give you a funny one. So we have now boomers, we can be so uptight. And I built this gorgeous 50,000 square foot international headquarters.
I've seen it.
My beautiful building.
I know it.
And I had all these rules about what you could put on the walls. What's the first thing on the list of things they hated? I can't put what I want on my wall.
I can't even put my calendar up. Like, what's going on?
And so we,
gosh.
I can't wear shorts or flip flops.
Yeah.
This is in Colorado, but we
and what year was that too?
Probably 2010.
See, okay, very relevant.
15 years ago,
but still very relevant.
Yeah. So you know what I did? I got rid of a bunch of the rules. Now I could have done the boomer thing and said, "Hey, you know what? Fall in line, and when you run a place, you can do it the way you want.
You can put your calendar." Yeah.
But what was I after? I wanted them to want to come to work.
Yeah.
That's it. I wanted them to like.
You want them to feel in a
the
good
culture
space.
and the space.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They do better work.
Oh,
if they want to come to work.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's why I say I'm so successful, because I love coming to work. Yeah. I love what I do every day. So it's not a job. It's not a job for me. No. It's hard. I mean, what I do is hard. I mean, between being in, fresh citrus, right? Between podcasting, but between really marketing and being a voice for the fresh produce industry. And like I said, I love what you did then. And we still talk about that to this day, about having that pizza party. And when we were at COVID, we created this like virtual networking hour. We just brought people on Zoom just to get together, to talk about what the industry likes, what we don't like. And look, like I always say, look at some of the first 75 interviews of our show was really that, like all this stuff during COVID. And we get to learn so much. And I think we neglect that because we think to ourselves, oh, well, what do they know? He's only 22 out of college. He hasn't done what I've done. Right. Yeah.
And COVID exacerbated the situation with everybody working at home.
Yeah.
And that drove baby boomers who own companies nuts. Like
nuts.
I can't look over their shoulder every minute. I can't micromanage them.
I can't say, come to my office. I can't
make sure they're actually working. Because how can they actually work if they don't come to the office?
Right. And
that's such a boomer paradigm. Right?
And we've seen, even into 2025, we've seen people say they want a back to work order. They want people back in the office, right? And most people now are looking for that hybrid model. Like I always tell everybody, I was like, listen, produce industry, I love you guys, but there's a reason I don't have a job. Okay. It's because I take my kids to school. I pick them up from school. I go on the field trips. So I'd be telling you guys 56 days out of the year, I'm not coming to work. But Hans, I'm always working though. I still am involved in my kids. I love being involved in my kids' life, which baby boomers, and my dad was like, we got to put a roof over our kid's head. My dad was in produce, right?
Yep.
Immigrant. You know the story, right? I'm not going to be like that. But again, that's the difference between the generations and how we were all raised, right? So hybrid model to a lot is big, really big.
Yep.
I mean, and I don't know where it's going to go because I see the mistakes that leaders are making, because even young leaders, they're coming up and they're going, well, the hybrid thing, that was just during a COVID thing.
Yeah.
We really want people here at the packing facility, at the distribution center. And I understand that, but I still think that could be
I like your idea of a hybrid model, because you're right. Things got out of control with too much work at home.
The people who get on Zoom calls at their doctor's office.
I have a friend who works for the FDA. He's a food inspector in Texas.
Okay.
Plant inspector.
Okay. Plant inspector.
And he said, he loves the back to work order. He said, Hans, you can't believe how many people were not working and they're on the government payroll.
Oh my gosh. We know that.
Yeah. So
not even on government payroll. I think a lot of people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people were not working. But, a hybrid, that's a good idea.
I think hybrid's it's
I like the model where you work some days every week. You come into the office, but not every day.
I agree.
Whatever.
I mean, I agree. I think the best model, one, it's got to fit company culture. But I also say, like, if you're shipping like real tangible goods, right, and you've got a facility and you have to be there. Then yeah, the CEO should probably be there at a minimum of 3 to 4 days a week, and maybe rotate a couple days if he lives, because again, you want to live where they live, right? But I'm not out of state, but an hour away. But then every couple of weeks the CEO gets to stay home for 2 days, and then I say like 9 days on, 2 days off, 9 days on, things like that. Because even the CEO, unless you're in production, right? That's what I'm saying. But if you're not, if you're the sales, if you're the marketing, if you're the CEO, the CFO, sometimes, and you know this because you've had a home office, is sometimes just being in your own space lets you be a little bit more you. And let's be real, Hans, we always want a little bit more you in your work, because that's where the creativity, the passion, the imagination comes when you're viewing even all the way down to your P&L.
Yep, absolutely.
I know. All right, listen, why don't we do this? Let's take a break. And then when we come back, you give us a little bit about the top 10 mistakes leaders make.
All right.
The book. Okay.
I'll rattle through the 10 chapters,
and then
name them, and I'm going to camp on a couple of my favorites.
Let's do that. Let's name the 10 chapters. And everyone, we'll be right back.
ZAG Technical Services, we do many things. Managed services for IT needs, including consulting. Another area of expertise for us is cybersecurity, making sure that there's awareness and risk prevention. And then the final piece is the data and software services, where whether it's software automation, data management, even AI, we have things that we can do to help your business. Those are core components that your company relies on. So we have a rich history of being able to manage these IT services so that you don't have to worry about them. You trust us so that we keep your operations going and your business going ultimately. When we talk about what AI can do for you and the time savings, even though you don't think you have something that you can just put AI in, you probably do if you have a business case that could be benefited from automation or efficiencies that are brought in. We can trust AI to do those things, and the beauty of that is you can free up time for your employees to do more meaningful work. So even if you think you may not benefit, I think it's worth a conversation, because you will be surprised. We'll walk you.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Always great to hear from our sponsors. And I always talk about cybersecurity too, because hackers know that the produce and supply chain can't be down, and that's why they target us, right? So we always got to be aware of cybersecurity, even in the fresh produce industry. Hans, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. How crazy, from the Skype call that we did. 10 plus years? No, it was 13, 14. What year was that? 2014?
Rewind to the airplane. We met over the Pacific Ocean at 40,000 feet on the upper deck of a 747.
No, it was the 777.
No, it was the 747 upper deck.
And your
brother? No, it was United, and your brother was sitting next to me.
That's right. It was United. That's right.
Upper deck. They don't have those anymore. Well, and I love that.
June always says that. He's like, I didn't get to ride that one. That was a good plane.
Yeah, and that's where we met.
Yeah.
We had Wi-Fi, and
memories.
Somehow we got to talking. You sat down in the seat next to me, which your brother was occupying, and you find out I'm an author. We had a Wi-Fi connection and you looked up my books, and
we did.
The rest is history.
You showed me you had one book in your bag, and it was the top 10 mistakes leaders make. You showed it to me, and then I think at the time the green book. Remember not the other one. It was the one that was black and I think green in it. Which one was that?
I'm not sure.
Either way, you were going over to China to go lecture.
Yeah, I was doing lectures in China,
and I was going over to study for my MBA. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And man,
that was cool. That was probably 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's so crazy.
All right,
let's do this, everyone. Hans is 100% a subject matter expert when it comes to leadership. Some of my leadership has come from Hans, and this book that you've written the top 10 mistakes leaders make. Give it just a little, 60 seconds on it. And then let's get into those 10, right? But I want people to know, one, what it's about, and then one, why you wrote it though.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Well, first of all, people ask me, did you make these 10 mistakes? I said, like, I've made over 100 or 1,000. I just chose the top 10.
These ones, yeah.
And the book was born out of the pain of my early career in my 30s when I worked for I hate to say it, a terrible boss, a total micromanaging nut who was brilliant, visionary, owner, founder.
Yep.
But he wouldn't share any power. He wouldn't allow any of us to have a say in the direction of the company. And it was so stifling, I eventually quit. It was one of the most disappointing moments of my early life.
Wow.
And I said to myself, and to God, if I ever become a leader, I want to be the kind of leader that empowers people,
right,
and not frustrates people. That's my
gosh.
goal, right? I want to empower them. You just said people are best when they're at themselves.
Yes.
That's what I want. And dictators don't create that kind of atmosphere. So I did become a CEO, and then I wrote this book, and I also got my PhD in leadership along the way. And this book was born out of frustration and a teaching moment. Don't do these things. And it's not a negative book, but it tells you each of the mistake and how to avoid it.
No, it's not. But like you said, the dirty delegation, right? You're gonna talk about that one. But that was one where I thought that was negative as well. At first, I was like, "Oh, how do you talk about this?" Right? And you were like, then I read the chapter and I was like, "Oh." I'm like, this makes sense.
It's the top 10 mistakes leaders make and how to avoid them.
Yes. All right.
So let's go down the list, and I'll just stop at a couple of my favorites. Okay. Number one mistake is the top-down attitude. And by the way, that I do believe that is the number one mistake. I'm the king of the mountain. It's my company. You serve me. I don't serve you. You do what I say. It's my way or the highway, the top-down attitude. Number two, putting paperwork before people work. And this is putting media, this is putting Facebook, this is putting technology, this is putting everything you can think of before people work. And honestly, at the end of the day, leadership is about people work, taking care of your people. Number three, absence of affirmation. I find a lot of leaders are not good at affirmation. In fact, I find leaders, some of you may be listening, you think it's a sign of weakness to pat people on the back, to write them a note of encouragement, but I think it's people crave affirmation. Studies show that affirmation is worth more to people than a pay raise. They'd rather be in an atmosphere that's affirming than make more money. Number four, no room for mavericks. I want to camp on this one for a minute because I'm a maverick. You're a maverick.
I was going to say... Uh-oh.
Well, the old term maverick, a lot of people that are boomers remember James Garner, Maverick, the cowboy, the sheriff.
That's what I remember.
But Maverick originally was a cattle herder, a cattle owner in Texas named, I forget his first name, but Maverick was his name, and he refused to brand the cattle.
Okay.
And so he said, I'm not going to do it. It's cruel to the animals. I think he might have come up with the tag in the ear, but he was a maverick. A maverick is somebody who paints outside the lines, who thinks differently, very creative, very entrepreneur. And a lot of time leaders stifle mavericks.
They do.
But my feeling is the creative types actually bring us to the future. Right.
I was told that by, remember I worked at that one job one time.
Yes, I do remember. Will you stop it with the new ideas?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, listen.
We don't want any new ideas around here.
You're making way too much money.
Yeah.
You're making way too many people look bad. And please stop. Right.
Yeah,
but and it wasn't that bad. I'm joking, everybody. But right. It's that I was called a maverick. They're like, you're a maverick. I'm always called a disruptor. And I'm always laughing about that because you're right. We're mavericks, we're disruptors, but it's innovation, right?
It's the future.
It's not like we're like just
it's
causing problems, right?
And those of you who are older boomers that are listening to this podcast,
then they are.
You have to listen to the Mavericks, and
Yeah, I agree.
It can be really uncomfortable. Now,
Of
by the way,
course.
there's two kinds of people. There's the troublemakers who just gripe and complain.
Yep.
And then there's the Mavericks that are useful because they want to be part of the solution.
Yes.
And so you have to sort those out. And I don't like the troublemakers who just all they do is complain how bad.
we know about those. Do you remember real quick, because I want you to keep going. Do you remember when we like first met? And there's a lady out there that if she's listening, she'll know this too, Wendy McManus. I would always like come up with like 3 the worst possible things that could happen to like every situation. Remember me always telling like I was like, oh, that's my best asset, was to think negatively because other people won't think that way. But in all reality, it stifled me from being creative, having an open mind, because then I would think, well, this is what's going to happen if we do this or this. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
How I used to think?
Yeah, I do.
Completely different. And I remember,
and that's not helpful.
No. And I did a lot of like mindset and coaching. And I did like some leadership coaching and things like that to understand like the parts of my brain, like the sage part of my brain versus like how it processes, to understand like why not think positively. It's not trying to be Hans like, oh, good job, you can do it, buddy, like yourself. No, it's more like your strategic thinking within your head saying this is what will happen, we're trying to happen. But if it doesn't, you're not bummed because you put your best foot forward, right?
Right. And the way to deal with Mavericks is to give them a little piece of the action.
Yeah.
Say, okay, you want to change things? Here, work on this. Show me what you can do. Show me your stuff.
Show me.
Don't give them the whole farm on day one.
No, but you could. I love that.
Give them a piece of the action and let's see how you do.
Show me you could. I've always said that. My dad, you're going to laugh about this. My dad's always like immigrant, farm worker, right? You think about it like that. He's been in produce. He's been on the, in the retail world. And it's funny because he's always like, we're performers. He's like, and it's a problem. Performers are problems. They're not right.
Yeah.
Because you give them something, and that's what you do. You give them something, go, hey, we want to try and sell this to this. Figure it out. Tell me what you think about it. Yeah. That Maverick will be like, all right, I'm going to look at the regular ways, and then I'm going to start looking at some unconventional ways. Then I always say my way, because I always laugh when I do consulting for people. You know what I say? I said, I'm going to give you 3 options. And they go, okay, what's that? I said, I'm going to give you this way, right? Which just is maybe it's a collaborative thinking, a mutual connection. The second way might be like a high level financial way, right? And then there's the third one, and it's called my way. And then I say, if I was the president and this was my decision today, this is what I would do. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just that Mavericksness, because if it was my company and this was my money on the line, this is what I would do. But on the other side, here are other strategic thoughts, right? Because we want to give them the most educated decision to make.
By the way, I have some great friends that are consultants, and they said one of the downside of being a consultant is people don't have to do what you tell them they ought to do.
They don't.
And they often won't do what the consultant says because they are scared. And they will stay in the old road, and the consultant will come in and say, this will be so good for your business. Yeah. But there's a fear factor.
There always is.
I wrote a whole book on change. Change is like a slinky.
Oh, and that was a good book.
We could spend a whole, if I come back, let's do a whole session on change.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
People fear change.
Oh, everyone, you got to keep going. But change is like a slinky was one of my favorites as well.
Change is like a slinky.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, number 5, dictatorship and decision making. And that pretty well self-explanatory. I'm going to make all the decisions. And that was the thing that frustrated me about this guy that I worked for when I was in my 30s. We might have a meeting and he might ask for our opinion, but at the end of the day, it was always his way. And that was frustrating. It's getting beyond, I know all the answers. Because you don't know all the answers. And a team really makes, I think, better decisions than one person. And one person doesn't know everything. Number 6, dirty delegation. I want to camp on that one. That'll be the last one. I'll read the rest of the chapters. But People say, what do you mean by dirty delegation? It's the opposite of clean delegation. To me, I give you a job and I give you the freedom to do it. That's clean. Dirty delegation is I have all these strings attached and the delegation is messy because I'm looking over your shoulder every minute and I'm really telling you, Ty, I'm telling you exactly how to change the speaker in this door. I'm not letting you do it. So I always say, if you're teaching somebody how to fly a 747 or how to do brain surgery, you do have to do it exactly
a little bit different,
like I tell you to do it.
You're right.
But
I like that though.
But you're packing produce, you're selling produce,
there's many different ways
you're
to do
producing packaging there's lots of different ways, and brain surgery is not at stake. And I remember when my oldest son was growing up, he wanted to get some money for washing my car. And so I said, sure, go wash my car. Do you think he washed the car the way I washed the car as a teenager? Not a chance. But it was a teaching moment. And I let him do it. And I praised him for it's the 80-20 rule, 80% positive, 20% negative. So next time you see all this stuff that's still on the wheels, next time, pay some attention to the wheel.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I like that.
That's what I call, good, clean delegation.
That's good delegation.
I like to talk about the 4 questions every follower asks. What do you want me to do? Will you let me do it?
Okay.
Will you help me if I need it?
Yep.
And will you tell me how I did?
Yes, 100%.
But the number 2, what am I supposed to do? You got to be clear on expectations. But number 2, will you let me do it? And what's behind that? Well, that's the whole, are you really going to let me have some job ownership?
Yeah, that's like when hiring people and you give them that job description. Sometimes they read that job description like the Bible, the word, because that's when it says that they're like, okay, I'm in when it says create pricing models, do that, they're like, yes, okay. Is that what I'm really doing?
Or is that not, it's just,
or am I just getting something from somebody else that I'm pushing?
And the boss comes into your office every 5 minutes.
Hey, change this.
I have a whole bunch of on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
If you look up my name, I have a whole bunch of teaching videos. My favorite video is called 5 Signs You're a Micromanager.
Oh gosh.
And it is sad. I'm like a counselor to these people. It's only a 5-minute video, but the stories people pour out on that's the best comments of how horrible their bosses are and what terrible I call it a plague, the micromanaging plague. And it's still out there.
There's some bad managers out there.
Yeah.
There's some bad ones. But let's keep going through the chapters before we give some key takeaways.
Yeah. So communication chaos is number 7. Ooh. And that's when nobody never assume anybody knows anything.
True that.
There's a lot of communication chaos in companies where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And when people are not informed and they don't know what's going on, they are discouraged. They make up negative stories and they're not productive. So communication is really important. Number 8, missing the clues of corporate culture. We could spend a whole session on corporate culture. That's the unseen killer of many leaders. It's the kind of environment that a leader creates, the atmosphere, how we do things around here. It can be very positive. It can be very negative.
Yep,
you just feel it when you get a new job and you say, all right, I got to figure out how these people keep score so I can score. And it's always different.
Yeah, it is. It's 100% different.
Yeah. I remember you and I were talking about that, again, that company and how obsessed they were about time.
Do you remember when we were writing our book and I went to Colorado for the weekend and they were like, where are you? And I'm like,
right.
Why? I'm like, what is it? I'm a hybrid. I work from home. Like,
right.
What do we...
Plus the hour, they were so obsessed in their culture. You had to be there.
Remember?
At 8 o'clock, not 8:01.
And I just got there at 6.
I know you'd get there at 6
I'd get there at 6 a.m.
And they were like, no, you can't do that. We start at 8. Okay, number 9, success without successors is failure. You and I were talking about your buddy his dad just died. It's really sad. And all of a sudden he inherits this huge company that his father did not mentor him. He thought he was going to live forever.
Yeah.
And he wanted to die with his boots on, which a lot of you are listening. You're saying, I'm not going to retire. I don't believe in that.
I agree.
It's my company.
Yeah.
I agree completely, but you have to prepare a successor because you are going to die.
And in two situations, we've had that, right? I've told you I've had two companies that are passing the torch, and one in Florida and one in California. And you're right. One's dad was like, hey, I'm trying to retire so I can go hang out and play golf more. And you had another dad that was kind of new, still there, still in the company, kind of halfway semi-retired, but would still come and make decisions, right?
Yep.
So it was like the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? But still two great people, right? But they was just different ways of the successorship, right? Of how they would lead to the successor.
I have two friends that own big companies in South Carolina, and they're both in that aging boomer age, and they want to turn the company over to the kids and the family, but they're half in, half out.
You got to start it now.
It's hard for them to let go.
You got to start it now.
You do, because success.
If you want to retire, you got to start 10 years, a decade plus more. Start, if you want to hire that person, get it going. Like you can't go, hey, I'm going to retire in 2 years. Let's hire this person.
No, and the best thing you do is to promote from within. And I always had a practice of having 2 or 3 people that I would tell my board of directors, if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, here's 2 or 3 people you can tap. And the people that reported to me, I made them in their annual review tell me 2 or 3 people they are developing. If they get run over by a bus, exactly. I call it the bus list, And then in today's
world, I said if the plane crashes, because there's all this plane stuff that happens nowadays.
So when I did retire from that company after leading it for 20 years, the board picked a guy that I'd been developing. And guess what? They're doing better than when I was there.
Yeah.
And you know what? Exactly. I am fine with that. I am fine with that.
I mean, seriously, though, that's what we want.
They don't need me anymore. They don't call me. And my wife said, Hans, you did a great job because they don't need you, because you prepared for the inevitable succession.
That's success.
It's just
but people don't see that as success. They retire and they want people to want to need them.
Yes.
I don't want anybody to need me. Stop.
It's insecurity.
I know it is. But all right. Well, this is a great time. We're closing the episode now. Hans, let's give 2 key takeaways that we can give our audience that's listening out there. One, obviously, buy the book on Amazon, Top 10 Mistakes Leaders Make. That's not even a takeaway, but please.
And by the way, if you're German out there, you might have noticed I only had 9 chapters. So the number 10 is failure to focus on the future. Just so those of you who are taking notes, there's number 10.
Got it.
I would say 2 takeaways. Number 1, learn to be a great delegator. Whatever you need to do, get my book, listen to I have a bunch of podcasts, get somebody else's, just Google good delegation or look it up on YouTube, but work at being a good delegator. I think it's the single, probably most important skill of a good leader is being a good delegator, because guess what? You are developing future leaders, you're developing people, you're empowering people, you're mentoring. All that comes out of good delegation. The other thing, that's a skill, a life quality, Patrick.
100%.
When people ask me, Hans, what is the most important characteristic in a person's life for long-term leadership success? Humility.
Oh, yeah.
Humility. It's so hard working for arrogant people.
People that have egos.
You look at I met Mother Teresa in Calcutta, India, at her compound in the 1990s. I'll finish with this story because I was so nervous about meeting her, and I had all these questions I was going to ask her. Guess what we talked about the whole time I was with her?
What?
Me. She wanted to know about Hans Finzel, let alone me. She was so humble. And I just took that away as a huge life lesson. It's not about me. It's about we.
Yeah.
If you're a leader, you own your company. It's not about you. It's not about the money. It's about a great team that can do great stuff.
Yeah. I like it. And
humility.
it goes back to what we said was our book was about working together.
Yes.
Right. And that's the hardest thing about older people think that if they admit they don't know something, then the younger generation thinks that they're stupid. And it's nowhere near that.
It's not at all.
I mean,
No.
Juanita is 70, one of our Global Fresh co-host. And she always says, we just think so differently. But when we start talking and debating and rattling on, we collectively think together instead of just saying, no, I said to do it this way. This is how to do it. Right. And so I think humility, and you know what? I'm going to go personal. Think about that too, even in your marriage, everyone, or if you have a relationship, right? You have to show humility too. That builds trust, right? And it even strengthens your relationship with your kids, with your spouse, right? That's one thing that, if your spouse can look at you and say, hey, you did this, blah, 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 blah. And it makes your heart fluster, right? It's okay. That means, hey, I get it. I've had Renee look at me so many times and say something to me, and I'm like, you are so correct, right? Because I've had to tell myself, like, swallow a cup of pride.
Yeah. And
because you're wrong, you can't, because everyone wants to fight. Oh, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so I love that. Humility is such a great one. And I think that that's a great way to end it.
Yeah. Yesterday I saw the clip from Love Story. You remember the movie with Ryan O'Neal, Love Story? The famous line, love means never having to say, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. 100%.
100% not true. Love says, I never have to say I'm sorry. That is not true. Love and servant leadership
means
I'm sorry.
Show vulnerability.
I think it takes a humble leader to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But people love it. When I stand in front of my people and say, you know what? I really screwed up. I'm sorry. This was not a good decision for the company.
That one was on me.
They love it.
I agree.
Hey, you're actually human.
You're taking accountability.
You're not just trying to pretend you're perfect.
Hey, everyone, you are not perfect. We know it. You know it. We can only be the best that we can be on any given day.
Absolutely.
We're all human. I want to thank you, Hans. Always
Thank
great
you,
having
Patrick.
you.
Love being with you, man.
Amazing. Everyone, we'll see you soon.